The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome everybody to today's session on Prospero. This is just one session of many that we have throughout the month and year to provide some nice free complimentary training and education on the Prospero reporting and budgeting tool. My name is Derek Krebs. I'll be leading today's presentation. All attendees are currently muted, and if you have any questions, please take advantage of the GoToWebinar control panel there to your right. And if that's blocking your view, there's a little arrow that you can click to the left or right to minimize or maximize that. And we have a nice group today that are attending live, and many people attend these via recording. So we'll be sure to pass this along for those that registered or attended. We'll be seeing a nice little recording along with this PowerPoint slide deck I'm going to touch upon. And I'm just going to be very brief inside the PowerPoint slide just to introduce the topic and product for today. But most of the time, we're going to be looking nice at features and functionalities to improve your budgeting reporting process, what I call bring the easy button to that process. So again, my name is Derek Krebs. This slide maybe acquaints you further with myself and the MSX group. I've been doing this for about 27 years, a role as consultant. I like to emphasize, I'm not a sales or marketing guy. So of those years, if we turn the clock back 27 some odd years ago, a lot of our founding staff and current staff, we began at a private company, FRX Software, and we had such great reporting and budgeting products that Microsoft acquired us, and we internally worked at Microsoft going on upward to 15 of those years. So we helped develop, implement, and still support to today those flagship products that were brought to the masses, over 100,000 sites that are using those tools. And as we got gobbled up about 12 years ago, we got spun off. And I'm so glad we did, because now we have development back underneath our control, which really just means you have now new features and functionalities, because those Microsoft products have not been touched for the last 8 to 10 years, but we'll continue to support those to set your mind at ease. But most have converted to Prospero. And I'm going to touch upon some of the advantages of such. And we have a mixed audience today. I'm very familiar with a few people attending today's phone call. We have a few existing customers where they have some new staff. Or secondly, we have some prospective customers maybe searching out Prospero. And finally, we also have some partners that are selling Prospero on our behalf. So I'd like to welcome one and all. So this will be a nice little overview session, and look forward to our website for some future trainings that we have on such. Quick little note to that, like you probably found out today's session, if you go to our website, msxgroup.com, you'll see a link here to the right on upcoming events for webinars. We have multiple throughout the month. And then additionally, twice a year, we have 2 full days of free online training where we take these really from start to finish, these Microsoft and Prospero products. So look for some upcoming events to such. Now, for those people that are new to the application, let me just continue maybe for another 3 to 4 minutes inside PowerPoint, then I'll jump right into the application. Prospero, just to reconfirm, is a great tool that does both the reporting and budgeting side of the fence to avoid maybe a lot of manual or double work that you're doing probably today. So this reporting slide could be various financial reports, including general ledger data and non-general ledger data. Perhaps then the budgeting and forecasting side to avoid Excel hell that we call it. And then we have all the nice bells and whistles and efficiencies to bring the easy button to your process, including some interactive charts and graphs, the ability to dynamically drill down to the account and transaction level, and even change the drill order is one of my favorite features I'll share with you. That last bullet point, for those people that are looking to move away from the Microsoft stack, one of several differentiators that stand us apart from the rest is the migration available for all of your hard work done in FRX and Manager Portal. We can convert that across. Or for any of that, we're using the Microsoft Forecasting Budgeting tool. A similar story, we have a nice little migration path to hit the ground running where you do not have to reinvent the wheel like a lot of our other competitor products. You have to redo all your reports from scratch, which does not apply to Prospero. So that's why a lot have favored and moved to us. As I continue on the reporting side, it could handle all your various general ledger and non-general ledger reports, income statements, balance sheets, cash flows, you name it. So there's just a little quick overview of the reporting side. Now, one of the most user-friendly, created by accountants for accountants philosophy, that we took the best things of our experience with the Microsoft world, we brought those into Prospero. And that was the user-friendly nature of the 3 building blocks we have for report. That you can mix and match these and interchange them in a report. Like there in the left in blue, we might have a row definition used for 10 different reports. Or secondly, there in red, we have perhaps a column layout. This example is maybe a month and year to date. And third and finally, we also have the reporting tree represented there at the very top, where I might navigate this income statement for different companies, locations, or departments that you have in the general ledger. And then I can take that same row and maybe use it for 10 different reports that might vary by the columns or trees that we're utilizing. And maybe just a note or two on the budgeting side. Yes, Prospero will cohesively tie those 2 processes together to avoid the pains that you might have in spreadsheet budgeting. And we have all the nice little details you can budget, like human resources, capital, revenue details, along with statistics that are even not in your general ledger. I have a few examples I'll cover in today's session. There's also great notes and annotations, audit trail history, easy security, just to name a few of the things I'll share with you on today's overview. Now, I'll probably just summarize this slide, and in a nice little thank you email for those that attended or registered, be sure to look to a couple of these slides, because what we did is we looked back in all the years, the current challenges that you see there in the left-hand column, and the Prospero solutions, maybe new features and functionalities to improve a lot of those pain points you're living today. So I'll probably just reference this without reading those. I'll probably just more in dialogue in today's session cover a lot of these. And that's really page 1 of the pain points and solutions. And then here is a second page as well. All right, so thanks for that little overview. And then additionally, for those that might have attended a few minutes late, just to repeat and share my contact information. Again, I'll be fielding questions that any come up during the session. Please take advantage of the questionnaire, or if not, if you're attending later via the recording, my name again is Derek Krebs, a consultant with the MSX Group. So there's my contact information to be a nice little resource for you going down the road. All right, so without further ado, let's now look inside the application. And usually what I like to do is look at a couple of different user perspectives. One might be an end user, like a manager in your organization that looks at different financial reports or maybe doing budgeting, or secondly, maybe from a CFO or power user's perspective. Now, I do have a couple of sessions open. Let me even start by describing maybe a CFO within your organization. They might want to see and open up what we call a report collection, where I can run multiple reports all in one fell swoop. This might be one example of 2 of the report collection I'm doing, where I'm seeing it electronically within the workspace. So this report collection actually has 4 reports that we're currently seeing, like 2 reports to the left of income statements like actual budget prior year, or in the lower left, maybe an income statement, both current and year to date, where I'm looking at maybe department or divisions in my column. So we have a lot of flexibility of however we want to slice and dice our data for our financial reports. And then there to the right, we have those interactive reports and charts, and I'll further expand upon that and drill into such graphs for easy analysis. All right, so let me now segue to an end user. How about I see about 30 people on today's phone call? How about each of you are managers within my organization, and I just need about 15 minutes of your time to acquaint you with how you easily log into the tool, how you open a report, drill in, and then maybe if it's that time for budget, how you do data entry. So that's what I'm going to do in the next couple of minutes. Now, whenever I launch Prospero, it could be installed on your local computer as one option of maybe multiple, or it could be IT wants you to navigate to a central server. That way they only install it in one spot. Or third and finally, this could also be a web-based application that you could easily deploy. I've logged in securely with what I call my Windows Network login that IT loves hearing. That way you do not have to maintain separate user IDs and passwords. We can leverage your Windows Active Directory security. Now, when I launch Prospero, we have a very user-friendly quick launch window. Every month, as the manager of the organization, you provide me 2 reports here. The top one is a actual versus budget income statement, or below, a nice little rolling 12-month. Or secondly, I might be one of your budgeters in your organization. Instead of working with Excel hell, you want me to then enter my budget for this upcoming maybe quarterly forecast, which I'll get to secondly. I'm going to open up one of the reports first of all. And let me take a second, and I'm going to acquaint you with our demonstration company structure. We have multiple company. This user only has access to the United States company, but I'm going to log in as a CFO in just a minute, and you're going to see multiple company that they have access to. Secondly, we have locations, and third, department. Now looking at locations, this user only has access to the Denver location, and we call that the user's assignments of what they can see regarding company location departments. And I'll show you behind the scenes, meaning as a power user, our user-friendly security. By accountants for accountants, little or no IT involvement, all needed, which is what we love saying and hearing. Now, finally, as I look at the departments, this Denver manager actually has access to multiple departments, and I can view my departments in one of 2 ways, either in a list view, like I'll call this department A, B, and C, or here in the lower left, I want to look at a hierarchical and graphical view of my departments. Now, I like to analyze using my data from tops down. So for my Denver location that I'm the manager of, I want to look at how all my departments had done last month. Then secondly, after I drill in from the top down, I might look at an individual department like marketing, department 300 I'll randomly pick on. But let me begin by opening up this financial report, looking at all my departments for Denver. And let me now bullet point, maybe the next 3 or 4 minutes I'll take you through. One would be the easy drill down to account and transaction level. Or secondly, I want to add financial footnotes explaining to you, my boss, the variances of actual versus budget. Or how about third, I want to maybe graphically analyze and look at that data. Or perhaps fourth, I want to export this to Excel to further share or do ad hoc analysis with this report data. And let me circle back to those 4 bullet points, begin with the drill down. I want to analyze this sales data. And when I drill into my report, it does not matter what cell I'm on. I'm just going to drill into the entire line. And when I do so, the next level down, since I started with all departments, is my sales of Department A here at the top, or Department B, marketing below. Or finally, after drilling into maybe my sales department, this is now down to the transaction level. These are transactions 1, 2, 3 for the given month, quarter, or year based on my report. We also can easily display some vendor or customer information in that vendor or transaction detail. I do not have to have general ledger access. I simply just have to access to this report and department to be able to see those transactional details. I'm going to close out this tab because that was Department A at the top I drilled into. But now maybe let me quickly analyze maybe where the spend or receipts of revenue came from, which vendors and customers for this second department. Now I'm going to close that out. Now let me just do one little side step. When I drilled in, this person and this button here called change the report prompt, they only had access to one company and only one location, like Denver. Now, maybe the second example I'll do is, how about let me turn my attention to a single department like marketing. So instead of all departments when I drilled into the revenue, seeing the departments that had the data, let's now look at this single department. Now afterwards, I have an administrator's window open. So now I'm looking at the shoes of someone in finance and accounting who have set up rights to this report. And we have simply the line being used for the report and the column. I have runtime settings like what month and year I want to run it for, but this time when I run the report, I'm going to be viewing it, looking at all companies in all locations. So here's an example of the company and one of maybe 20 features I could probably rattle off of new features and functionality that were not in your world today in the Microsoft stack is, again, this tree called all, which is automatically created and maintained as new company or departments get added. So there's maybe multiple company I'll look to. Now, one of my favorite features is our drill down order and the ability to change it on the fly for quick analysis. I'm going to take that same sales line. However, me as the CFO, my first click and drill down order is looking at company, like United States here at the top or Europe secondly. Or now my second click or drill level is the locations, because my end user only had access to this Denver. So they entered this report at this level, but I started first at company, now location. Now third and finally, there's the different departments I illustrated from the end user's perspective. Well, that's very good. That's maybe my normal hierarchy, drilling into company first, location second. But what I can do on the fly is this button called change the drill order. I can click. I usually predefine my normal hierarchy preference, like company first, location second, department third. But let me randomly drag the department to the top, because I saw what company had the largest variance, but I want to see sort of what department. Is it my marketing, my sales, manufacturing, you name it. And I see a lot of industries represented today, higher education, manufacturing. So this is easily deployed across all. Now, when I drill in this time, instead of company first, location second, I immediately went to the department. So I can see maybe some problem areas. And now I could have opened up the report, maybe looking at just a single department across maybe the multiple company. So this time I'm going to open up my R&D, my research and development, which I might have across multiple locations instead of just Denver we saw earlier. So this button here called reopen the report, I just clicked. All right, and then going full circle, my favorite feature here, changing the drill order. Otherwise, most other products in your world today, you would have to have a second, third, or fourth report to allow me what I can nimbly do with just one report using Prospero, changing the drill order. All right, how about, let me go back to the end user perspective, and let's now look at the second bullet point of 4, where I am going to add financial footnotes to it. You, my boss, the CFO, have asked us to display, or explain variances or why we're over and under budget. You see these blue dots here to the left, that indicates items that have a memo or note. Over here to the right, I've hidden it to maybe not occupy too much of my real estate room, but I'm going to come here and thumbtack that, because over here to the right, it gives a nice little time date stamp of what user and when they added that memo or note. I'm logged in as a generic user in this database called Manager1, but Bob or Sally, we would see it. And then here, I can simply, on any given line, I can right click and annotate, and I can add a note for this account. Once I do so, like sales I'm currently on, there's that good old icon indicator and the time date stamp, and then maybe an additional user, maybe my boss, comes up here and says, yeah, Derek and I spoke, and this is our course of action here. All right, that way you have some nice little interaction and dialogue without having to have separate emails, Word documents, or explanation in other areas. That's all self-contained within this report. And I'm in what we call the published report area, which is a nice little repository of your month-end reports that you could also archive to have maybe different reports in different folders, any of your choosing how you scheme up these folders within the published report area. All right, how about my next bullet point is graphically displaying data. So yes, there's very nice tabular format of the data, but how about here when I display this report as a chart? We have about 9 or 10 charts out of the box. You do not have to be an Excel master, because even I, as a very good Excel person, I'm fumble around on graphs, do not have to have that, nor I do not have to have a separate modular license, which a lot of our competing products require to use some other Tableau or Power BI product, which nope, this is all self-contained in Prospero. These are interactive graphs, which I can drill in, because how about this is my quick margin analysis. I want to drill into my revenue further, and I've just drilled into that graph and that legend to the right. I see maybe product 1, 2, or 3 based on my general ledger or hierarchy I have. Graphs are great, But what I'm going to do is, using this toolbar icon, I'm going to switch back to the report view, which I led in with when I drilled in the report. So now here, the heading, I'm looking at net revenue. I drilled in, and this might be, again, product 1, 2, or 3, or department A, B, and C. How about I want to export this to Excel, being my fourth and final little interaction that I'll paraphrase. There's a lot more features that I maybe could reserve for little future one-on-one demonstrations that we have. All right, I'm just going to export this to Excel. And what you're going to see is all the font, formatting, shading formulas are now inside Excel. This is what I call a one-dimensional report, meaning one report in only one sheet. But now what I'm going to do is I have maybe two other examples here. This next one is an income statement where here is Department A, Miami, or Miami Operations, or here's San Francisco Department A and San Francisco Department B, which is really just another option that you have to share the data or consume it within. Most people would probably leverage the drill down viewer I led in with, which is secure, electronic, real-time, notes, annotations, graphs. But otherwise, yep, this is also a means to further share or get people's financial data easily. My last example that I'll take you to is where I'm looking at multiple reports. Now, how about my board member or banker? They like to see every month 3 reports. So here's a report collection like income statement report 1, or balance sheet report number 2, or cash flow report number 3 that I'm now seeing inside one Excel file. And that simply, again, is a report collection. And here's maybe an example I pulled up earlier where I'm seeing that report collection electronically in the viewer. But there's another example of that similar report collection in either Excel, or I could send it to PDF or a printer to come up with what I call a report book that many people are manually doing offline, that is tedious, out of date, and not secure. All right, so there's a few highlights in the report consumption. Now what I want to do is let's take a moment or two looking at the design of this report, meaning the good line, secondly column, or third tree of the report. Starting with the line set, I'm now logged as my power user in the accounting area, so I have rights to edit and view the line and column. I'm going to come up on this report, and some other little useful features are these 2 buttons to show hidden columns, like I'm simply just showing the account number to the left, yay or nay. But a second example might be this actuals, might be a quarter or year of actuals, and I might want to show the months of the quarter or year by showing hidden columns. Or secondly, we leverage drill down, I demonstrated earlier, but there might be instances where you want to show some hidden lines for some supporting departmental or product data based on your general ledger or even non-general ledger data you want brought in this Prospero database. All right, now looking at the line set, and one of the most painful, error-prone, and tedious things in most people's worlds today is whenever you add a new revenue expense, you have to remember all the different reports and line sets or rows to update that for. Or secondly, if you're using budgeting tool, it might be a second product or process, including Excel Hell. I'd have to also maybe to add that there, which I'm going to transition to budgeting here in just a second as well. But really my emphasis is on Prospero's great feature to usually reduce and avoid maintenance altogether as new accounts get added. I'm going to take us now to the line set because this expenses, I'm showing above this row all my individual expense accounts. In the line set though, this was one simple row where I'm expanding above this row to show the detail. Now let's take a look within our natural account, meaning our revenue expenses that we have in this income statement. I could do things the old-fashioned way, meaning I could do individual accounts or ranges, but the better way is within Prospero, leveraging what we call summary accounts. So now I'm looking at the different accounts, either in a graphical tree we saw earlier, or now here's a list view. And if I scroll up, there's accounts A, B, C that I have for my expenses. But let me just cancel this out. I'm zooming into my account, but this time I want to see it through the graphical tree view. Usually, most organizations only have one master tree that has both balance sheet and income statement accounts in it. However, in our demonstration, we might have a couple different trees, like in my cash flow modeling and budgeting. Maybe I have different cash accounts like depreciation, bonuses, maybe broken out separately. But as I go full circle and finish with this expense node of my tree, I can name it anything I want, but this is a nice little range of accounts, like 6,000 to 7,999. Or in other words, if I add a new general ledger account, Prospero has an integration with over 30 different general ledger system and versions. We automatically will grab that and bring it to the tool. And secondly, I do not have to update this tree whenever I use ranges or wildcards. But there might be instances where you might not want to use a range or wildcard, so there's a couple different ways you can maintain that. But my emphasis again is usually you just have one master tree, but then you might have 10, 20 reports and budget templates that utilize these summary accounts in usually one tree. Let me now show you behind the scenes of this tree. So here to the left, since I'm the power user in accounting, I'm going to go to the trees, looking at our natural account and this net income tree. I'll right click to expand all the levels that we have. You can have as many levels and names of these nodes of the tree you wish. But there's our good old expenses. I'm going to right click. I want to see where this summary account is used throughout the entire system. So as I expand this window, you're going to see some great information like, hey, it's referenced in this one report. It's used in all these different lines. So if I change my mind, like add a new account, or maybe want to change the structure of my reports or budget templates, I usually do so in this one central area, and then it flows automatically downward to all these associated building blocks like lines, columns, reports, and trees that reference this summary account. So that's one great little maintenance to get you control of the process to avoid this being a full part-time job. Now, second thing I want to share is related to that. Under the home ribbon, we have a very nice catalog view where I can see all the items in the system. So here is report 1, 2, and 3. I can see who last modified it, when, and who last published the report available to our end users. I'm going to take one of these headings like the line set. I clicked on the heading and I've now sorted all my reports by the line set being used. So like my PowerPoint slide I led in with, here's all the 10 reports using that one single line set that I just showed you behind the scenes there. So if I change my mind, my structure, one single tree usually, and usually one or few line sets. These also can be used for budget entry, which I'm probably going to next segue to. Or in other words, we are not Excel hell. I work with about 5 or 6 other competing products over these last 27 years as a consultant. I favor Prospero due to its user-friendly row, column, or tree, but let me just paint a little horror picture for you, which we're not. We are not Excel hell add-in product, because all of those you would see just individual Excel files. You would have no visibility of who last modified the report and when. And I'm guessing, but I have no clue, I'm guessing maybe these 2 reports use the same line set. I have no idea. Or same column. I have no idea. If I change my mind, like changing, management wants to see a prior year column, I'd have to usually open up all 3 of these reports separately instead of modifying one column. So thank goodness we're not an Excel add-in product. All right. Thank you for letting me get in on my little soapbox of efficiency as a consultant that I try to bring the easy button for. Let me now go back to my end user, closing a couple windows. I was looking at my financial report, looking at results for last month, like actual prior year and budget. However, you, my boss, the CFO, have just asked me to update my budget for this upcoming quarter. One step back in the quick launch, I was opening up maybe one report, actual budget. I did not open up the trended one like rolling 12 month. I'll save that for a later session. But now I'm going to open up this budget screen. Here's my same security assignments like company 1 for location Denver. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up maybe 2 or 3 departments, starting with Department 100 Administration. Now this department is expenses only. It's going to have a familiar look and feel that's like Excel, but it's not, because we leverage the reusable rows, columns, and trees. We leverage the SQL database behind the scenes. Even for non-general ledger data, I'll be recapping some of those bullet point thoughts in the next few minutes. Now this button here, I'm going to open up Department B, a second department that is expenses only. Now, if I laid out all my 50 different departments on the table, I might have a couple different templates or line sets that they're used for, because maybe these 10 departments, or 2 that I just pulled up, they share the same template, meaning expenses only. So here's one of my departments, Department 100, starting with salaries and below. Same thing here is the second department, expenses only, salaries, travel, you name it. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a third department that has some revenue and cost of goods sold in it. So perhaps of my 100 departments that I have, I might have maybe 3, 4, 5 templates that are about common. You can have as many different looks and feels of your budget templates, because here might be a second flavor or line set that we're using for any revenue producing departments. Now, I mentioned Prospero's advantages of both general ledger data, yes, primarily, and also non-general ledger data. Let me give you 2 or 3 examples of great non-general ledger data I'm including inside the Prospero data warehouse. One of those 3 examples are products like 10 motors, product 20 compressors, or product 30 spare parts. The product segment is not in my general ledger, but I can still budget and record actuals to that nimbly within my Prospero data warehouse or database. Second example of 3, these statistics like units sold, price per unit, cost per unit, these are not my general ledger, but same story. I can include that inside Prospero. And how about third final example is looking at these salaries. This is my budget screen. On the HR tab, here is maybe their name, like Bob and Sally, or I can budget by their position, like I need this many manufacturings, I need this many truck drivers, I need this many registered nurses, as I'm quoting a couple of healthcare. I see some higher education on today's phone call, because I need this many summer interns. Now I'm going to get back to the HR screen in just a second, but as I'm back to my main income statement for this department administration I'm currently on, we can use any color coding you prefer. I like to use a gray shade indicating stuff that you stay away from, meaning you do not enter data directly to, like these salaries, including headcount and hours, both budget and actuals here to the right. These are locked from direct input, because maybe I loaded, let's say an MSX group, we have about, let's say 100 people in our organization. I import that in maybe once a year, once a quarter, once a month. It does not matter what payroll system you're using. I simply import it in from Excel. I just need a column for their name and their department, how much they make, and I load it in the tool. As I continue, here are some examples of additional benefits like workers' comp, income tax, et cetera, et cetera. These are also pre-populated and defined by the detail I have behind the scenes. Let's go back to this HR detail tab, as I'm just going to go briefly from the left to the right. I have their name or position, because I even can aggregate multiple people on one line item. Because here's an example, if I have high turnover and variable staff, these are actually 3.5 full-time equivalencies, and I think I was playing around in an earlier demonstration where I bumped it up to 4 during maybe the summer months. Here's maybe an average pay rate, or it could be the true rate if it's by individual. And then this is what allows me to do some seasonal budgeting, meaning hours or full-time equivalents that might vary by the year. And let me just show you some bullet points here at the top. I want to change these to all hourly based. I want to see everybody full-time equivalency based, or here mixed, meaning I have both hourly and salary people that I might want to sort of see that all rolled up by. And then back to the main screen, here is where I can see their total headcount, or maybe total hours or FTE rolled up. Back to my HR detail, continue to the right. We have the ability for pay raises. So how about this person starts making $25,000, but I budgeted a 10% increase in period 3 for them. We can have multiple pay raises over the year, but we're only showing one. Based on how simple or granular you want to get in your budgeting, Here's some examples of bonus by either percent or dollar amount. If the bonus period's left blank, that's going to accrue it each month they work, like period 1 through 12. Or I can even say, and budget specific bonus periods using that field to the right. And then finally, we have a couple of overtime fields, commission fields based on overtimes that you might want to scrutinize or budget. Maybe commissions like based on sales staff that you might have. And then finally, perhaps some related benefits. Now, here's a couple examples where, let's just use MSX Group for example. We have employees in about 10 different states. Derek, I live in California, so whenever Derek gets loaded, I just import maybe the 100 MSX staff into the tool. I need a column for their name, what department they're in, and maybe Derek has a California next to his name. And maybe Derek has a family for health insurance coverage. And then some other examples might be workers' comp, 401k, and you can define these choices and options through a very simple table. And once I go now full circle back, there is now all that data getting rolled up, along with some of my health insurances, payroll tax. Now notice this payroll tax. There are no formulas inside Prospero versus a lot of our competition. They're afraid to show you the detail behind this. I know it very well. It's very ugly, but Prospero's is super simple. Let me show you that because we're always transparent. We even have a free trial version of this tool. That way you can kick the tires. I don't want to have that $1 million mistake on a forecasting tool. Ours is only about $40 per month for the base price, but I can't tell you how many projects they come to us a year or two later, like Derek, we failed miserably in the last planning and budgeting tool. Let's take advantage of your free trial version. Let's see if it works for us, and I'm guarantee it can. We can even convert your reports, yada, yada. Now, as I get off of my soapbox again, I'm passionate about that because I've seen so many wasted mistakes. I want to show you now a couple things behind the scenes, especially budget related. I'm now logged in as a power user. I'm going to come to this input area and let's open up the budget that we saw through the end user's perspective. First of all, here's our good old line and column that we can mix and match and reuse. Now notice this tab here called overrides, because when I pulled up my sales department, I told the system to use a different sales line set. Or how about any people in law firms on this call? I might have a different law that might have billable hours, average rate, or I see some higher educations on today's phone call. This might be the number of students, maybe tuition rate, maybe their meals allowance, etc. So I might have a different template based on the different departments. So here's where I easily define which departments singularly or plural, meaning through a range roll-up. So here looking at department, here's our sales department using the sales line set. Or I could here for my location, something similar. I could say, hey, maybe all of my division, all my operations division people, and maybe the children beneath it, all my operations people use this template for their budgeting. That might be unique of their formulas and statistics that we have. But there's my easy control and visibility for such. And then probably I'm just going to wrap up with maybe one thing behind the scenes on payroll, because we are so much user-friendly comparing our products. This only takes me about maybe 1 to 2 hours of HR setup, but our competing products, it might take me 1 to 2 full days to do that. But in Prospero, super easy. I have a top half that really tells the system what expense accounts to use for salaries. Most organizations deploying Prospero for budgeting, they might only have one line here, but our example shows maybe hourly and salary, bonuses, yes or no, commissions, yay or nay, or overtime. So in case we get demonstration or questions specific to that, that's why we have a few more than most do. And then secondly, that I'll finish up with, this is administrator only screen in my benefit designation. I can add new benefits in seconds, like I'm just hitting the down arrow. But in general, this is one master screen for my budget assumptions by my CFO. So here might be a percent of salary, like FICA, with a limit. So this does all the if-then calculations down to the individual department automatically for me. There's no formulas behind the scenes. It's just one simple table. Second example might be a percent of salary like Medicare with no limit. Or finally, it could be a fixed rate per month, like some of our health insurances over here to the right. We can define these names and choices, like I'm just going to click on the insert button because maybe I have an HMO plan, high deductible plan, or maybe I have a PPO preferred plan that might be a different rate or amount. And then finally, I can add a new field here to the right. So here I've added maybe 4 or 5 fields, but let me just click on this up arrow. Right now we have 5 benefit fields. I'm just going to add a 6th one. I'm just going to call this 401k, and maybe I'm just going to add a choice like A and B, maybe a 1% contributor or maybe a 2% contributor. So this one table allows me all the control and visibility for some of my mass assumptions on a big ticket item like payroll and staff is. All right, let me go back now as my end user. That's a little bit behind the scenes of how this HR gets loaded or populated. The only thing I did not show is the very easy import file from Excel of your existing staff. Let me finish off with a couple other bells and whistles on the budgeting side, and I'll maybe end it up with maybe a couple minutes on the security behind the scenes, how we can easily define Bob or Sally getting access to Department A and B. Now for my budget screen I'm still in, I mentioned the rows in white I can enter and key in data for. So I'm just changing this from $1 to a different. I'm now saving those amounts. If I went back to my budget report, looking at actual versus budget, if I were to come up here and refresh the report, it would pull up my latest, greatest changes I just made, which maybe rephrased is, nope, it's not a second product or process. I do not have to import, export actuals and budgets to and fro. This is all self-contained in the Prospero system. Now, as I return back, I want to see who made that change to that account and when. So we have great audit trail histories. I'm taking to maybe about 3 or 4 other budget features. This button within my budget screen called History gives me a great little time date stamp. This is my user, like Bob or Sally. On this date and time, changed it from what value to what value. I'm looking at a single account, like 6260, which is my disability insurance. But what I also can do is I can look at history across this entire department. So this time, what's different is I'm not putting my account on 6260. I'm putting my cursor somewhere up above that's not in an account. Same story or button, history, but this time I'm seeing history across multiple accounts. I'll expand the one I did earlier just for correlation. There's my history for 6260, or here's maybe history for advertising, who changed it when, and even I can see some different sorts because how about here, we see different users made it, maybe on different dates. So how about I'm just going to type in admin, and now I'm just seeing the changes made by Bob or Sally. So this gives me great control and visibility of who changed my budget and when. That's again what we call audit trail history. All right, how about the next bullet point is what we call line item detail. I'm expanding maybe tuition, advertising. How about I'm in the marketing department? Derek budgeted $200,000 this account. Why the heck did he do so? So what I can do on the toolbar is this button here. I can come up here and collapse all my line items or expand them. Most other products only allow you to look at one account line item at a time, which I despise, but I love our ability for such. And then here I can come up here and insert a new line item here. But to save time, I won't because here's Derek's advertising budget broken into these little components. Or here's Derek's travel for trip 1, 2, and 3 to see this customer or this convention. The same icon indicator to the left as I transition to the next bullet point, being the annotations. And I'm going to use this toolbar icon to show the annotations column. So these are what I call forward-looking budgets. My earlier demonstration was where I was looking at last month's results explaining my variance, but here is on my budget some notes of why, who added it, like Bob or Sally, and when, that time date stamp. So I can quickly review the rationale behind Derek's budget right here. Now this is all embedded in real time inside the tool here. And I'm even going to do one demonstration a little off the cuff. How about I'm in a growth phase? I want to budget a new location. In the Excel world, it might take me a couple of hours to do what I'm going to do in seconds. I'm going to log in as an administrator. Under segments, I'm going to do a little sidestep here. Under our segment definition, we read this from the general ledger. However, when I mentioned, oh, there's an example of products that was not my general ledger I can budget to, by all means, when we discuss the design of your Prospero tool, I can come up here and add some non-general ledger segments. Like here's the product, and how about here's the customer. Maybe I want to do some budgeting or recording some actuals that I'm maybe doing offline manually in a different system or tool that I want to contain in Prospero. So there's one example of non-general ledger segments I can add. Let me just cancel that out. Now, continuing with my earlier example, I'm in a growth phase. I want to budget a new location. So I'm just going to call it something like new 01 for the name. I'm just going to save this. And I'm going to now open up the same budget screen. And this time, though, when I open up the input, automatically, look at the location, instead of me budgeting Denver, we saw earlier, I'm logged in as a CFO. When I mentioned that all tree, which is automatically created and maintained, you're now going to see this new 01 automatically in the tool. So I can not only budget to that immediately, I did not have to create my general ledger because half the time, a lot of this is my budgeting what if, and I don't want to clutter my general ledger with stuff I'm not sure if it's really going to take fruition. And let me just even open up that screen just to, again, be very transparent because I can immediately now start budgeting. And we saw through that tree, if I were to save data and go to report that consolidates and rolls it all up, it's automatically included within the all tree. But there's maybe my default template that maybe my majority of the departments use. Otherwise, we saw a second or third template used like for the sales or whomever else. Sweet. All right, there's the easy button of that process. I did promise, as I'm probably going to wind down here in the next 10 minutes, let me even see if any questions came in through the queue. So give me a second here. I have to go to a different window. Usually on these general sessions, people are a little shy. They're just more of sponges, so I see no questions here. However, let me pull up my contact information occasionally in case any of you joined the call a little bit later. Again, my name is Derek Krebs, a senior consultant. There's my contact information. So if especially you're viewing this through recording later or at any time, send me an email. I'll be glad to follow up with any questions or requests you have. Okay, might be existing customers, sort of how to do something, or it might be prospective customers. I can provide a demonstration or free trial version. As I continue, let me show you, especially security related, when we mention by accountants for accountants, we just have one area and one button. So I'm under security, and we only have one button called our user definition. We don't need IT, we love them, but here is I'm the CFO or one of your FP&A people in accounting. I'm doing all this by myself. Here is what I'll call user 1 Bob, user 2 Sally. When I mentioned we can use Windows authentication, here's where I can add a new user or a new role / group. And then earlier phrase was, hey, we can use your Windows network login, or there might be people that are not in your network, might be my banker or board member. So here is maybe another visual to one of those earlier remarks, leveraging your Windows or Active Directory security, which IT loves hearing. Let me close this out. Now, this is the Manager 1 user I logged in earlier as. Now, along with the group of what they can see or not inside the system, or secondly, the user of what assignments, mean what company and departments they have, I just turned on this assignments button. I'm going to click on the insert button if I need to get granular. But here is for the company. I could define it like the wild card you see here, or I could choose all companies as another way to do that. But this user, this top line, had only access to company 1. But in our demonstration database, we also have locations. Right now, this was an example of only a single location for Denver. But let me role play on one of these bottom lines. How about for the location? I have a person in charge of my Midwest region, which in our regional tree and in my general ledger, all of my Midwest locations start with the number 4. If you have good, clean chart of account numbering, great. That makes your life a little bit easier. But if you do not, here's an example where maybe a region has maybe individual items, but that would really, again, be one single central tree. Let me just finish up. All right, how about this manager's in charge of Midwest? So whenever they log in, they have access to maybe either the single location or maybe group of locations through using our trees. And I could continue further in department, etc. Like here might be department A, B, C as need be. So I'll probably just conclude with that. And just to repeat, especially for training some of the new staff of existing customers or perspective of that is what we call assignments of what company, location, departments they have access to. Now, really the only final thing on security, since it's so user-friendly, is we have what is called visibility. Let me show you from the end user's perspective that whenever they're on the quick launch window, they only saw 2 reports, like report 1, income statement actual versus budget, or report number 2, my rolling 12-month. But really, in reality, you have about 20 or 30 reports of balance sheets, cash flows, you name it. So let me show you through the eyes of the administrator. I'm going to open up this one report that we saw, like actual versus budget. And this button here called visibility. Yeah, maybe I want all my users to see the report. There might be, let's say we have regional controllers. So maybe I'm an international firm. We maybe have some controllers in Canada, Europe, Asia. Maybe I want those controllers in their respective regions to be able to run the reports. So there might be yay or nay if they can see or view the report. There might be some members that have access to Prospero that you're going to allow them to run the report any time of the month, day, or year. So we have these easy buttons we can turn on and off. But then finally, let me say this is a balance sheet report. Maybe all users do not get to see my balance sheet. So I turn that off, and then down below, I can get more granular. So here is either by the role, which is more efficient, meaning the group, or I can get down to the individual user as well. So we have either all people by role or individual, or a combination of what I just spoke of who can or cannot see this report. And then also we have it on the budget side. You can have as many budget versions as you want, like best case or worst case, or quarter 1 forecast, quarter 2. And we have the same type of visibility button, like who has access to the best case budget, or who has access to the worst case budget, etc. Okay, good. That is my little overview of Prospero. I'll probably wrap up some differentiators to recap some things here. Now, in this differentiator slide deck that I'll be sure to email all that people that attended or registered, let me just mention a few little things to sum up the last 45 minutes or so. One would be a single application that many are probably using 2 separate processes for both the reporting and budgeting. You have the manager reporter conversion, taking all that hard work of your reports and budgets, including from Microsoft Forecast or anybody that is using that legacy tool. The familiar rows, columns, and trees to mix and match the building blocks. Flexible drill down, changing the drill order, charts and graphs, report collections in a few flavors we saw electronically or through Excel. The expanded rows where we had total expense to avoid and reduce maintenance here, etc., etc. So one of my concluding remarks would be we have a free trial version of Prospero. So if you want to have a little separate one-on-one demonstration and even use a mock-up of your data, there was just some takeaways, especially for some prospective ones, which I see the half of the audience today are. So I'll say thank you for one and all. I'll probably be winding down the next minute or two. And probably some other little minor miscellaneous things, especially for some of our existing customers. I want to thank you for shaping our product direction. So what I want to share with you is, for those people that are Prospero customers, on the home ribbon, we have a great button here called Feedback and Support. It could either be a product suggestion because, let's say last year, 20 plus new features came inside the application. Most came from our existing customer base. So please, on our home ribbon, take advantage of this feedback and support. So we definitely learn, and almost all of our features come from our customer feedback. Or in this same feedback and support, it could be a red hotline into getting in touch with our support team. We have a large staff that mans this. If I came up here and played around, like here is a support issue, and then I'll call this Derek Demo. And once I click submit, then immediately I get a support ticket generated, and probably going to have a whole team of people that's saying, Derek, quit doing that. But there is how you can immediately get routed to your support team. So I applaud them for the product team for being very proactive in our customer requests, and our support team, give them a little pat on the back. Okay, I'm going to look one more time in case any questions came through the queue, which I do not. So I'll say some concluding remarks, saying a big thank you for attending me live or via recording. Feel free to reach out at any time. Again, my name's Derek Krebs. So otherwise, thank you for joining me today, and have a good rest of your afternoon. Goodbye.